Hello, brothers and sisters. Hey, thanks for joining me again today. One thing that I've learned about people on the left is facts don't really matter, which is frustrating for me, and I'm sure for them, because I like to give facts and then come to conclusions based on said facts. But that's not the same on the left. My favorite example of that is the lady who was the CEO of NPR. I don't know if she still is today. And she was also, I think, the CEO of Wikipedia. She was at a conference where she said something like, hey, facts are a distraction. We shouldn't let the facts get in the way of getting what we need to get done. And she's definitely a lefty. And so there we go. The left doesn't really care about the truth and facts. If it doesn't meet their agenda, they don't care. And I've got another one of those stories here. And this is in the Daily Beast. Stephen Miller melts down as MAGA is blamed for a fire at judge's house. A few days ago, there was a fire at a South Carolina judge's house. I think she is the senior justice at South Carolina Supreme Court. And I think she ruled against the Trump administration and doesn't want to release documents the Trump administration want to use to help catch illegal aliens. I think that's basically what it is. I expect eventually she's going to have to release the documents. I think the U.S. Supreme Court will eventually make her release the documents because I don't think it's against the law. I think she's just being an activist judge again. But that's not what this is about. Her house just burned down, and the media in America has been going crazy about there's some right-wing lunatic that burned her house down and almost killed her and her husband and kids because she made this ruling against Trump. It's all over the press. So let's read this story and see what it says. And I think Stephen Miller is one of Trump's senior aides. He does have a lot of power in the Trump administration for sure. Let's see what happened here. A judge's 1.1 million beach home has gone up in flames. So here's the home. It's gone up in flames. Here's Stephen Miller. Okay, let's see what we got here. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, okay, so he's the Deputy Chief of Staff, was called out for MAGA's violent rhetoric after a fire tore through South Carolina judge's house. Judge Diane Goodstein, who ruled against the Trump administration in a high-profile voter registration case, had been walking her dogs on a beach when her 1.1 million Edisto beach home went up in flames around midday on Saturday. Goldstein had reportedly been receiving death threats for a few weeks, the local news reported. Maybe so. Public officials have been getting a lot of death threats, and whether you're right or left, you're a lunatic. Violence is never the answer, as long as there's a political way to get your grievances addressed. And in this case, there is. You just need to keep working through the courts. If you don't like that Trump is president and the Trump policies, you need to elect a Democrat or a Republican who is more aligned with your policies. So there is a solution. So violence is not the answer here. So people should not be burning her house down if that's what happened. 3 people were hospitalized after the blaze, which is being investigated by authorities. Her husband, Arnold Goodstein, was forced to jump from the first floor to escape the blaze. He is understood to have suffered multiple broken bones. He's a former Democratic state congressman and state senator. Yeah, so it looks like a few people may have been hurt, but luckily it was just loss of property, thank goodness. So here we go. We've got Daniel Goldman. I have no idea who he is. Trump and Stephen Miller and MAGA world have been doxing and threatening judges who rule against Trump, including Judge Goodstein. Today, someone committed arson on the judge's home, severely injuring her husband and son. Will Trump speak out against the extreme right that did this? That was a response to Spencer Hakim's note breaking South Carolina Judge Diane Goldstein's home is burning to the ground after an apparent explosion. 2 others were rescued by neighbors and paramedics from a marshy area at the rear of the house. Goldstein's son, Arnold Goldstein II, is also in hospital, but the extent of his injuries is not known. Last month, Judge Goldstein issued a temporary restraining order to block the Trump administration's Department of Justice from getting access to the South Carolina Election Commission's voter registration data. Democrat Congressman and attorney Daniel Goldman, who served as lead counsel in the first impeachment of Donald Trump, was quick to tag Miller on X with footage of the fire. Okay, so that's who Daniel Goldman is. So he's not partisan at all. he was just lead counsel who tried to impeach Trump the first time. Okay. Stephen Miller and MAGA World have been doxing and threatening judges who were against Trump, including Judge Goldstein, Goldman wrote. Today, someone committed arson on the judge's home, severely injuring her husband and son. Will Trump speak out against the extreme right that did this? I'll speak out. Anyone should not use violence. If there was an arsonist, we need to catch him or her and put them in jail, no matter who they are. This is not acceptable on the right or the left. And I think I said that at the beginning. Miller was quick to respond, calling Goldman deeply warped and vile. MAGA mouthpiece Miller posted on X, "There is a large and growing movement of left-wing terrorism in this country. It is well organized and funded, and it is shielded by far-left Democrat judges, prosecutors, and attorneys general. The only remedy is to use legitimate state power to dismantle terrorism and terror networks," Miller wrote. I actually completely agree with him. I think his statement there was good. While the Trump administration has launched the first ever government-wide effort to combat and prosecute illegal doxing, sinister threats, and political violence, you continue to push despicable lies, demented smears, malicious defamation, and foment unrest, Miller said. Despicable. Yes, I'm all for the federal government going after people that are doxing federal agents, federal judges, state judges. I'm all for that because the purpose of this doxing is really to threaten these people's safety. They want some lunatic to go burn her house down. That's right. The Department of Justice should look into this and see if any right-wing lunatics did dox this judge. And if they did, they should try to prosecute them. And if it's people on the left doing that to federal agents, they should also be investigated. I'm not for two-tier justice. Let's go after everybody who's breaking the law. Goldman replied, saying that Miller was being evasive by avoiding the direct answer to his question. If you are trying to combat political violence, why don't you condemn the political violence against a judge who ruled against you and your admin? It's pretty simple. Do you condemn all political violence or just that against your supporters? We know where Goldman stands. Again, well, let's leave what Daniel Goldman said. Today, someone committed arson on the judge's home, severely injuring her husband and son. Will Trump speak out against the extreme right that did this? And this is fairly common rhetoric. We've seen this actually from several Democratic lawmakers, and we've seen it from several media organizations calling out Trump and this attack on this judge by a right-wing lunatic. And I'd like to point out to you that Mr. Goldman appears to have written this in response to Spencer here on the evening of October 5th. Then I'd like to present you this. From NBC News, I would say no fan of Mr. Trump. No evidence that fire at South Carolina judge's home was arson at this time, law enforcement says. This was the next day, October 6th. And I'm not going to read this whole article, but I would say good on the judge. The judge has actually made public statements that said, please calm down the rhetoric. The investigators have not been able to determine that this was arson at this time. And so let's not be blaming right-wing lunatics because it looks like this might have been an accident. I think it's a good illustration that everyone who just doesn't like Trump blames Trump for everything. And facts don't matter. They don't wait for the facts. They immediately wind up their folks and say that this judge who had been resisting Trump and fighting the good fight had had her house burned down by Trump or Trump's people. And then Trump won't condemn it. But it's all nonsense. They don't wait for the facts. Everything that happens, they just blame Trump. Facts and the truth don't actually matter. People just say things on the internet without any evidence, and then other people believe them, and this is going to spin up some left-wing lunatics that are going to go burn down some right-wing folks' houses. This is how this all happens. Facts do matter. I disagree with the CEO of NPR. We can't make proper decisions unless we have facts. That's just me. Let me know what you think. If you like this, like and subscribe. If you don't watch me. Thanks. Bye.